World War II, the deadliest war in human history. But on the Eastern fronts, some of the soldiers fighting Nazi Germany were not adults. They were children, a 5-year-old boy who rescued trapped soldiers under artillery fire, a teenage girl who shot a Gestapo officer during interrogation, a 14-year-old boy helping defend a fortress surrounded by flames. Children who should have been sitting in classrooms instead carried rifles through the ruins of war. These are not legends. These are true stories of the Soviet children who fought Hitler. On June 22, 1941, Operation Barbarossa began. The armies of Adolf Hitler invaded the Soviet Union in the largest military invasion in human history. Entire villages disappeared in flames. Families were destroyed overnight. Millions of children lost their parents. Officially, the Soviet army only accepted soldiers over the age of 18. But war stopped caring about age. Orphans wandered through battlefields searching for food, for shelter, for someone still alive. Some were adopted by Soviet military units. The soldiers called them sons of the regiment. Most cooked meals, carried ammunition, cleaned weapons, but some of them ended up fighting on the front lines. Because many of them had nowhere else left to go. Many never chose war, war chose them. June 1941, as German forces stormed defense of Brest fortress, a 14-year-old boy named Peter Klypa was trapped inside. At first, Peter had only been part of a military music unit. But once the invasion began, everyone became part of the battle. Peter carried messages between soldiers under fire. He delivered water and medical supplies. Every time he crossed the ruined courtyard, German machine guns opened fire. And during one dangerous scouting mission, he discovered an undamaged ammunition depot. The discovery allows Soviet defenders to continue resisting for days longer. A 14-year-old boy helping hold back the German army. Eventually, Peter escaped the fortress with several soldiers. But he was later captured by the Germans and sent to forced labor camps. He would not be free again until the war was almost over. At 16 years old, Vasily Kurka volunteered to join the Soviet army. At first, commanders refused to send him to the front lines. He was too young, but then they discovered something unusual. Vasily had extraordinary marksmanship skills. After sniper training, he became one of the youngest and most respected Soviet snipers of the war. And he did more than fight. Vasily eventually trained other snipers as well. While many teenagers his age were still learning how to become adults, he had already become a platoon commander. The rifle in his hands was almost heavier than his childhood.
Inside the Battle of Stalingrad, one of the deadliest battles in human history, there was a young boy named Ivan Gerasimov. His father had already died in the war, and Ivan believed his mother and sisters had been killed in a bombing raid. At first, he carried ammunition for Soviet artillery crews, until the day German tanks broke through their lines. One soldier after another fell beside him, until finally, only Ivan remained. Then an explosion tore away his right hand. Most people would have collapsed. But Ivan kept fighting, holding an anti-tank grenade against his wounded arm. He pulled the pin with his teeth and threw it toward an advancing German tank. The explosion destroyed the vehicle and killed Ivan himself. He was still just a boy standing alone in the ruins of Stalingrad. Perhaps the most unbelievable story belongs to Sergey Aleshkin. He was only 5 years old, too young to understand war, but old enough to lose everything because of it. German troops had executed his older brother and mother for helping Soviet partisans. By the time Soviet scouts found him, he was starving and alone. A Soviet officer adopted the child, and Sergey became the youngest son of the Regiment of World War II. But even at 5 years old, war found him too. During a German artillery attack near Stalingrad, a command bunker collapsed under heavy shelling. Several officers were trapped inside, including Sergey's adoptive father. While explosions continued around him, the little boy ran toward the buried bunker, digging through dirt and debris with his bare hands. His actions helped rescuers reach the trapped soldiers in time. For his bravery, 5-year-old Sergey received the Medal U for combat merit. He was too young to fully understand war, but war had already changed his life forever. Arkady Kamanin, 14 years old, the son of a Soviet Air Force commander. At first, he only repaired aircraft, watched pilots prepare for missions, learned how to fly. But not long after, Arkady took to the skies himself. He became the youngest Soviet military pilot of World War II. While grown men feared skies filled with anti-aircraft fire, a teenage boy flew directly through combat zones. Sadly, Arkady did not die in war. He died from meningitis at the age of 18. He survived the battlefield, but never truly escaped the war. Not all of the young fighters were boys. One of the most famous was Zinaida Portnova. She was only 17. A partisan scout operating in Nazi-occupied Belarus, and a member of an underground resistance group known as the Young Avengers. Eventually, Gestapo officers captured her. She was tortured for weeks during interrogation. But during one questioning session, Zinaida suddenly grabbed a pistol from the officer's desk. She shot the interrogator, then 2 more German officers. For a moment, she almost escaped, but she was captured again soon after. On January 10th, 1944. After weeks of torture, Zinaida Portnova was executed. She was 17 years old. Years later, she would be named a hero of the Soviet Union. During World War II, tens of thousands of Soviet teenagers joined partisan groups and military units. Some became snipers. Some flew aircraft. Some never even reached adulthood. They should never have been on battlefields. But war stole the childhood of an entire generation. And while history remembers generals and famous battles, many people have forgotten the children who fought in them. Children who lost their homes, their families, their innocence, and sometimes their lives. Some survived the war. Many did not. But all of them lost something children should never lose: their childhood. And perhaps that is the greatest tragedy of war. Not only the millions who die, but the children forced to become soldiers before they ever had the chance to become adults. If you enjoy forgotten stories from World War II and real human stories hidden inside history, consider subscribing to the channel, because history is not only about nations and armies. Sometimes it is about children trying to survive the impossible.